Welcome to St. Patrick's Day, March 17th council meeting. For all you Irish people or people that claim to be Irish, behave and party responsibly tonight. Tonight's invocation is by Mrs. Marshall, then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Dear Lord, as we come together today, we ask that you give us wisdom and guidance as we plan for the future. May our discussions be respectful, our time be productive, and our decisions beneficial. As always, we ask that you please watch over and protect our military and our first responders. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Leadership Troy people that are here, along with our regulars. Please silence all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. I think that's all our announcements. And Mrs. Knight, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sneed. Mr. Twist.
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
Here.
Mr. Phillips.
Present.
Mr. Sievert.
Here.
Mr. Pierce.
Present.
Mr. Whidden.
Here.
Mrs. Marshall.
Here.
Mr. Schilling.
Present.
Move to excuse Mrs. Snee.
Second.
Motion to excuse Mrs. Sneed by Mr. Sievert, seconded by Mr. Schilling. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Excused.
Mrs. Knight, could you please read the minutes of our March 3rd, 2025 meeting, please?
Minutes of Council, March 3, 2025. Committee reports. Buildings and Utilities Committee recommended legislation be prepared authorizing a contract for renovation of buildings at Riverside Cemetery. Law and Ordinance Committee recommended that resolution number R-12-2025 be adopted to approve the application for land to be in an agricultural district on Lytle Road. Committee recommended the legislation be prepared to change the name of Goldenrod Drive to Pinecrest Drive in the Somerset Reserve Plan development. The Committee of the Whole provided reports regarding the budgeted water and sewer master plans and improvements to Prouty Plaza. There is no legislative recommendations on either at this time. Resolution number R-12-2025, application of Sherry Mompower to have land remain in agricultural district was given a second reading and adopted. Resolution number R-13-2025, bid and contract for renovations to cemetery office residence area and the chapel was given first reading and adopted. Ordinance number 04-2025, change a portion of the name of Goldenrod Drive in the Somerset Reserve Plan development, first reading and adopted. Following various comments, council adjourned at 7:25 p.m.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Motion to approve minutes by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports, we'll start tonight with Mr. Whidden, Law and Ordinance. You have a written report and an oral report, correct?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. This committee met March 10th to consider a resolution of support for the renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program, CIP, administered by the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC. The renewal of this program will be on the ballot in May. Just in the last decade, Troy has received funding assistance of approximately $5.897 million to help with 10 infrastructure improvement projects. It is the recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared supporting the renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program administered by the Ohio Public Works Commission. And this is respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, William Twist, and myself, Jeffrey Whidden, as chair.
Anyone have any questions or comments on that report? Please continue, Mr. Whidden.
The Ohio Division of Liquor Control has transmitted the following notice of a liquor permit application for a new C1 permit. Troy Station LLC, located at 1511 South Market Street. The C1 permit is defined as beer only in original sealed containers for carry out only. The police department has not recommended any objection or hearing request be filed.
Questions, comments? Moving on. Recreation and Parks, Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This committee met on March 10th regarding the purchase of 0.6750 acres located at 330 Crawford Street. This land could be added to Hurlinger Park to enlarge the park and further enhance the recreational improvements planned for that park. It is the recommendation of this committee that legislation be prepared authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to purchase the 0.6740, I think those are two different amounts. Oh, yeah. Parcel and an abandoned railroad, let's see, I'm going to leave out that parenthesis part, from the Pensco Trust Company for the amount of $205,000 and to execute any related documents so that the purchase can be completed without delay. This committee supports emergency legislation. Respectfully submitted, Christy Marshall, Jeffrey Wood, and myself as chair, Susan Westfall.
Any questions on Jeff?
I had a question. There's some comments on also the canal property, and that is owned by the state of Ohio. And I think in the committee meeting, you said that was something that would be the city would like to acquire as well, and it was sort of implied it may be a simple process to do that. Is that right?
Yes, and simple meaning it's not a very involved process that has to come back to you. We don't anticipate there'd be a cost to that. Not so simple in that it can take some time, given that we're dealing with the state of Ohio.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to our last report is the Committee of the Whole report. All members of council participated in a Committee of the Whole on March 10th. The meeting was chaired by Council President Rozelle. The purpose of the meeting was to review the schematics for the downtown safety, streetscape, and utilities improvement project, determine if there are any issues so that the consultant can proceed to complete the project design for bidding. All members of council supported the design, with some questions related to using concrete and paver materials. The current project estimate is $10,267,551. The cost will be funded from the city fund balances with no bonding anticipated. It is also anticipated that ODOT's urban paving program would fund approximately $200,000 of the cost. It was noted that no legislative action is to be recommended at this time. It is also noted that adjusting the authorization for the project design may be necessary prior to bidding authorization. And this was respectfully submitted by Christy Marshall, Jeffrey Schilling, William Twist, Samuel J. Pierce, Todd Sievert, Susan Westfall, Bobby Phillips, Lynn Snee, and Jeffrey Whidden. Any questions on our Committee of the Whole? Moving on. We have come to the portion where citizens' comments. You can come up and ask questions or comment on anything that's on our agenda tonight. And anybody would like to start, come right on down. Okay, seeing none, we'll get to the business of resolutions. Mrs. Knight, could you read Resolution R 14-2025, please?
Resolution number 14, 2025. Resolution in support of State Issue 2 renewal of the State Capital Improvement Program on the May 6, 2025 statewide ballot. This was reported on this evening.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Whidden, second by Mr. Twist. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Okay, so missing something. Mrs. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Schilling,
Yes.
Mr. Sievert,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Mr. Whidden,
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Twist, second by Mrs. Westfall. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Adopted.
Moving on to ordinances. Mrs. Knight, could you read ordinance 05, 2025, please?
Ordinance number 05, 2025. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety of the City of Troy, Ohio to purchase real property at 330 South Crawford Street, Troy, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. This property will be purchased for the amount of $205,000. First reading.
Move to suspend. Second.
Motion to suspend the readings by Mr. Pierce, second by Mr. Whidden. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion is adopted by Mr. Schilling, second by Mr. Pierce. Mrs. Knight, please call the roll.
Mr. Whidden.
Yes.
Mrs. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr. Schilling.
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sievert.
Yes.
Mr. Pierce.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Zipping along. Any communications or announcements this week, Mrs. Knight?
Just the reminder of filing the financial disclosure statements.
Any comments tonight, Mayor?
Nothing's, nothing much happened this week, but residents can know that the Strawberry Festival's around the corner, and the pageant is coming up here in just a few weeks. There was a meeting this week for the Tour de Donut, and lots of planning going on for the summer, so looking forward to a busy summer.
Do we have the Japanese in today, this week?
They were in Tuesday. We had the Consul General from Detroit was here. We had Jetro Chicago was here this past Tuesday, and good day.
Good, thank you. Mr. Titterington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of operational announcements. First of all, we are in the midst of the cleanup month for Riverside Cemetery. We are doing the annual cleanup of decorations and other items that are out at the grave sites. So everybody who has a facility there should clean up their particular sites, and then new decorations can be placed on April 15th. Speaking of cleanup, we do have the annual community-wide residential spring cleanup, where property owners, residents can exceed the toter limits, as well as put out brush and debris, and we will pick them up. That is April 7th through April 11th, and we will have announcements on social media.
Do we have any limbs, trees down with Saturday's stuff, other than the one across the street from me?
Sporadically
Crushed into a
throughout,
garage and a car?
nothing on a community-wide basis.
Director of Law, Mr. Kerber, anything tonight?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Son of a gun. Our auditor's not here. Mr. Twist.
Nothing this evening.
This is a general question that was asked to be asked. In general, are you still receiving, or have you ever received input back from anybody in our ward on Prouty Plaza, or anyone in the city from Prouty Plaza, or?
I have had one reach out on where to send some suggestions, so I gave him the Streetscapes, Mr. Daniel, I forget his last name, but Daniel gave him the Streetscapes email that was on there, and he said he emailed.
Okay.
So, yep, I had one reach out directly.
Mr. Phillips.
I have nothing this evening, Mr. President.
Same thing.
I have zero contact with anyone on that item.
Mr. Pierce?
I want to thank the public for coming last week and being so involved when it came to the Streetscapes project and what's happening downtown. We had a lot of good comment from the public there at the meeting. I really appreciate it. That's the comment that I had so far. So I really want to thank the community for being involved. When we're looking at a project that's that large and affects us, it's good to see their involvement with it.
Can I
Yes,
did
sir.
receive, I forgot, I did talk to my neighbor.
Okay.
Don't want to leave them out, but they were, liked the idea, but did not want the water feature.
Okay.
I forgot. I talk to them all the time.
Mr. Whidden?
I had a question for this, Mr. Tarrington. Maybe you had mentioned it. When does the dye mill facility open up?
It is open.
It is open.
It's been open.
Tuesday through Saturday.
Tuesday through Saturday.
There you go.
Let's go. Let's haul something right now. Oh, wait, you can't till tomorrow.
I apologize. I believe I announced that last time, but
And when's
I should
Halloween?
have done it again. Halloween's too early. I'm not going there yet.
Wait till July. Anything else?
That's all I have.
You get any feedback or?
I have not received any.
Okay.
My wife had some comments on the issue, but I'll keep those inside the house.
No, they need to be sent to the consultants as well.
She mentioned them not in a public capacity. It was more.
Okay, all right. I don't want to hear any complaints from her. Mrs. Marshall?
I have nothing at this time. I couldn't tell you if I've had anybody reach out to me because I can't get into my email right now,
Oh,
but that is being worked on. So I apologize if anybody has.
in our update, okay.
It is, yes, I'm working on that,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Mr. Schilling?
I don't have any comments other than the Proudy Plaza and the downtown. And again, I look at this, over the last 6 months or so, we have been asked to look at capital improvement projects that probably total close to $90 to $100 million. And while we got some of that money set aside, we're still short a little bit on that. And so again, I want to make sure that we look at, I think the plans that were presented for the downtown were top notch. A lot of consideration went into it. But I have a feeling it's more of a Cadillac than it is a Chevrolet, and I think we may want to look at trimming some of these things to get because again, we've got so much to look at in the future. I think it's important to get the renovate the downtown, but I'm not sure all the features and things that they had talked about, especially some of those lighted ballards. But there's some things that we could take a look at, and maybe when it comes back to us, maybe we can have some things that we can individually vote on as far as do we want this, do we want that, specifically as we approve the bids and this type of thing. I think that would be very beneficial to everybody.
All right. Mrs. Westphal?
As far as Proudy goes, I had one person say they didn't like the water feature, and another person wanted us to keep the grass. And one other person on the downtown did not want brick in the main pathway for ease of walkers, canes, and wheelchairs. That's all I have.
Mr. Siebert?
First, I would like to answer your question about Proudy Plaza. I walked around downtown. The lady from Crossroads was very encouraged by it. She actually liked the water feature and thought that it would bring younger people to downtown to go to her stores and have lunch at Herons and kind of hang out downtown. I also went to Kay's, as many of you know, which is kind of my second office, and a number of people there seem to like it. Obviously, there's a couple people who were concerned about the money, like Jeff mentioned, and some people about the grass. But the overall walking around through downtown on a daily basis since that meeting has been very well received. As far as personal things that I wish to state, one is going home tonight, I noticed that baseball has started on the Market Street fields. which means softball has either started as well or will be. So please be cautious. I know you're not supposed to run from the senior citizens parking lot over to the fields, but it happens on a routine basis. So please be cautious when you're walking or when you're driving that area to make sure that people aren't playing Frogger to try to get over there. There's a simple step down and walk back up to go under the overpass, but people seem to do that. So let's keep our eye out for people there. Second, I guess, is the this Saturday at 9 o'clock is the at-large meeting. I would encourage anyone who has issues, Prouty Plaza, or any other issues relative to Hurlinger Park, Crawford Street, or I know we've even changed mailboxes out there. So come to that meeting, express your concerns. We will certainly convey them back, and we'll have donuts and coffee and juice. And I know Susan Lynn and I, as well as a number of council members, attend that, and we do hope to have a crowd and convey your thoughts back. And finally, I wish to congratulate the Leadership Troy people that are here in attendance. It seems crazy. I was trying to do some math, but 30 years ago, I was sitting in those chairs, and 30 years later, I'm still sitting up here. So I get involved, get engaged. It's a wonderful program, and I hope you get a lot out of it.
The meeting for the at-large is at the clubhouse at Halifax. It is accessible off of Finsbury for all those that may not know where it's at. I know there's a thing out there on there that gives an address, but if they don't know where the address is, it's the Halifax Clubhouse, and you access it off of Dorset, or off of Finsbury. Dorset may be next month, I don't know. Other than that, just tidbits of stuff I noticed. Your wonderful flashing light that's by the high school across from Baird Funeral Home, the big person walking across on the high school side, one of those signs is down.
No, that sign
it
was.
Is it back up?
It was actually in the back of my vehicle.
Okay.
And I took it in here, so we have to replace it.
Other than that, as was brought up earlier, and Susan brought it up, last week at our council as a whole, there was inquired about like the dyed concrete and stuff that the consultants were going. Have you met with the consultants again since last week?
Yes.
Have they
We just
had
had
a
a
chance?
discussion.
Have they had a chance to look at costing?
No.
Okay.
They haven't gone that far.
But they're.
It won't be that much difference.
Okay.
It's a matter of ongoing maintenance. The materials and the slippage and the smoothness, they're looking into that a little further, but they are confident that there are materials that will address any of the concerns.
Thank you.
I can tell you that talking to some of the county commissioners, they, and Patrick was there, indicated that the concrete was slippery when they put theirs in at the courthouse, the stamped concrete, and they had some concerns about that. So I think there's ways that you can do the concrete so it's not as slippery, maybe, I don't know, but I do look forward to the consultants' input on that.
Staff, fire, police. Citizens, including those from Leadership Troy, if you have any questions, is it time to come up and ask about what we do or operation or whatever, or you can do that later if you want, or questions about the city. We have a wonderful questioning audience tonight. With that, if there is none, our next meeting is April 7th, 7 p.m. in this council chamber. We are adjourned.